partner with Axon, you immediately gain access to a full range of products and solutions designed to meet the complex needs of today's grower. We carry all major brands and sizes of tires and wheels. We specialize in large diameter wheels for large equipment. We have one of the largest OEM replacement wheel inventories in North America. Known for extreme flotation setups, duals, and triples, we have wheels for all makes and models of tractors, sprayers, combines, and grain carts. If we don't have the wheel in stock, we'll custom build, sandblast, and paint in-house. There isn't a more vast inventory in North America dedicated to helping dealers move more iron. With facilities on the West Coast and in the heart of the Midwest, leverage our 230,000 square feet of indoor inventory to solve any problem a grower may have. Move more iron with Axon.
Moving iron.
Hello and welcome to Moving Iron Podcast. This edition of Moving Iron Podcast is brought to you by Iron Solutions, powered by Randall Reilly. I have Randy Tye here, and Randy, how you doing, man?
Very good. Thank you very much for having us on the show here.
No, man, I appreciate it. I love having you guys on here. So it is that time of the year where a lot of kind of pre-buying, pre-planning, new machines showing up from the factory, ready for that spring run here. We got planting season coming up here, not too far away. We got a lot of things going on that will absolutely show what's going to happen here and the way things are moving forward. And the biggest part of all that, more than anything, is the trade process that goes along with that. So I know if it's like us, we have a lot of stuff that comes in on trade that we are waiting on. I think everybody's in the same boat as you're waiting on this stuff to come in from the factory. You looked at a trade in 6, 8, 9, 12 months ago, 18 months ago in some cases, and you're trying to go through that process and really dial that in. And you have a product called Iron HQ that has a trade evaluator process inside of that. So, Randy, let's talk a little bit about that and what you see happening out there.
Yeah, for sure. You're exactly right. We are coming up to some challenging times. Anytime there's a big swing in the market, inventory's picking up, whatever, we as purchasers of iron, it's our biggest thing we're buying every day as sure. Purchases in our industry is getting a handle on it. What's going on? There's predictions. Everybody's got their own tools on how to supposedly pick the correct number. And what we have with Iron HQ helps bring that all together. I think of Iron HQ more than a CRM or a quoting tool, but as a workflow tool. A basic CRM could be an Excel sheet with a guy's name on it and phone numbers. You keep track of the guy. So what we like to do is create a workflow process. And what I just talked a little bit about today about the trade-in process. And that's where we need to figure out what we're going to pay for this stuff is before we own it. We all seen those mistakes where the deal's already been made and we paid what? That's a great, yeah. Been there. As maybe I've said in 4 different meetings. I've been in this industry all my life. Last 6 years was as a whole goods inventory manager for a 19-store complex. So I certainly feel the pain, understand the challenges. And before I come to HQ, I was using HQ, but these are some of the things that I helped with that process and helped learn from our dealership and what is the right way to do it or a good way to do it. So we have a workflow process. And if it's all right, I'll just quickly show my screen and maybe that'll create some questions for you on what we look at here. So
absolutely.
So you should be able to see it now, should you? Do you have my screen with the dashboard that you seen a minute ago? All right, cool.
Yes, sir.
So the really neat thing that we have with Iron HQ and the work process and incorporating iron guides into Iron HQ. Lots of people use iron guides. Different brands have it under a different name, but we're familiar with the product. And we understand the research and work that goes into that and all the reports that contribute to the values and prices we have in there. And everybody knows John Womack and how hard he is doing and making sure that's coming out right. So what we do is we take that information. So we can use the mobile app. That's one opportunity is use the mobile app where a salesman can go out Wednesday, Thursday, Friday kind of thing, do some road trips, look at the information, put the pictures in his mobile app, appraise the unit, follow along with the inspection sheets and so on. And then it automatically loads up to HQ under just under here, we have my saved appraisal. So as a manager, this would be all my appraisals coming up here that we'd be able to draw on. Salesman would be able to, or the manager would be able to look at as he is getting ready, or the salesman's back in. Here's the most recent appraisals that were just popped up. And so a very nice feature for kind of sand before the salesman gets back. But let's take it the next step and assume that the salesman is back to the dealership and he's entered the appraisal into the trade-in. So one of the reports that I build, and that's one of the things I do, is work with dealers even on an ongoing basis and help them set up HQ, get it, be able to use it the best case scenario. We're doing on-site training with dealers that have had HQ years that we're just giving them a refresher course. But this is one of the processes that we talk about. And as you can see, these are all the appraisals that happen to be in an opportunity, a deal. And we see at the minute the salesman says yes and hits the save button, and has that deal built, please review, or yes, manager, can you have a look at it? Because we have workflows in there for as well too. And so here's an example of a customer, a made up customer, and a salesman. And the description is just the description of the quote was generated by our demo account, so it shows up like that. But we have a quick snapshot of the view, and it is a tractor. So as a manager, I know we're looking at a tractor. I know it come from this customer. Maybe he's a good customer, maybe he's not. And it happens to be a John Deere in this case, 6715 cab, the year, serial number 2 to be determined yet. But one thing maybe not a lot of people understand with a trade guide, iron guides, we can set the percentages that we want to be. So we have some dealers at the end of haying season, they might say, all hay tools, I want to be at 85% of guide, because we're going to be 6 months before we're going to really sell them, and maybe the value is going to drop down. Or we're in a market like we were 2 years ago, and there's hardly enough loader tractors around. And so if we can set it so it's between a 3 and 5 year old loader tractor of these 3 brands, we could be 120% of guides. We know what the future is. We know that there's some strong opportunity there. So we can set that. And in this report, we just give you a reminder of where it is set, that you as a manager is set ahead of time. The guide said it's worth 52,137. Salesman here said, let's leave it at 52,137. And the one thing that I added on here that I really find useful as a manager viewing this is that lots of times we kind of get everybody agreeing with the sales price, but we lose our potential profit because we don't pay much attention to the recon. That's not often a question talked about. So here we get an example of in his deal, what is the recon he's going to set it at? And he's got margin 6.41. So maybe he's off target margin. Maybe we want to be more like 10%. And that's why this one is bold compared to the rest, is the target margin is 10% and he's only at 6.41. So just kind of a red flag for you to have a look at. Tells you what it's going to book at. So here we go, that we're going to own this at, even with reconditioning off, we're going to own it at 46.9, and guide said it's worth 52. Do you believe in guide? Do you want to be 110% of guide? You want to be 90% of guide? But the beauty of using guide is it's a third-party reference. As my dad would say years ago, it's someplace to put the dummy end of the tape measure on. Where do we start? Where are we going with from here as a reference? And we have lots of places for trade notes when somebody wants to put a notes in and so on. So the beauty of this workflow process, that even if it's a single store dealership or the salesman's down the hall or the other side of the state, I can go in and I could edit that opportunity and view the opportunity, or I could edit it. So I could go in and say, no, he doesn't have enough recon. I'm familiar with this customer. I want to adjust the recon to $4,500, and it would adjust his deal, and he'd be able to go ahead and pass that number onto the farmer. He would know that his trade-in's been appraised. So as compared to sharing emails back and forth where, what do you think on this? Give me all the details. Okay, now I write an email back. I think we should be here. Or if I want multiple people to view it, it can all be viewed by different individuals. And then we put a filter on here as an example that I can look up all appraisals I've ever done. So in this example, I've only got 2,317, but you can imagine dealers with this for 10 years. Let's just pick a model that I know there's a few in there. That'll look up all the appraisals ever done on that model tractor. Pretty handy. I can look back and see where the guide was back in 14. This one was done in 2014. The guide said it was worth 41,731, and we were at 41,500. 4 years later, it drops down to 28,173. So pretty neat thing that we can look back at previous guides compared to we were, and then another really popular column we have here is where was the deal wind up? So did we get the deal? Did we not get the deal? I think it teaches people or shows people that if we appraised 10 of these same models in a row and didn't get any of them, maybe we need to pay a little bit more for it. Maybe why are we missing them so bad, and so on. So really nice process, put that in front of different people. And then we use the next tool to go with that. Part of the appraising and putting a value in used equipment, obviously, is what we paid for it, or what we sold it for, pardon me. And so here's an example of a report that has a click of a button with an HQ. We build it for people at dealerships, whether it be a manager or whatever, or even salesmen. We can look up everything we sold historically. And I have dealers, know one in particular that has had HQ for almost 10 years, and they probably got 14,000 used recording sales in there that they can look at with a click and look at all of them and where they've been historically and what they've done. And then we throw another column in here, what they sold it for. That's total proceeds, selling price, and total cost, where we were at the time. Yep. So some great information. Again, we want to throw the TM135 in there as an example. If you remember in the previous report, it sold 3 that were on a sold 1, closed 1 opportunity. There they are, what we sold them for and what our cost was. And you can open them up and say, oh, this one's unusual. That one's 65. These are made up numbers, of course, on our demo account. This one sold for 65. These 2 sold for 41.5. Wonder what the difference is. Sure enough, you can open up that opportunity, maybe see that it was equipped something unusual, or it had a complete engine job, or who knows what was that altered that deal. You can see at a glance, so you don't get sucked into the idea that the last one we sold for 65, but the reality is the first 2 we sold were only 41.
Yeah.
Because lots of people just remember the big number.
Yeah. So here's a question for you. So back to the recon, and you're exactly right. You're spot on with what you said there, that that's the quickest and fastest way to lose money. You can make a bunch of money, or you can lose a bunch of money with recon. And yes, I think one thing is the consistency in the recon process, and what does that look like? Is that, what are you doing with the machine that's got, excuse me, what are you doing with the machine that's got X number of hours on it? Or, is it an ABCD type of deal where this is an A-level machine? This is doesn't require a lot. This is a certified pre-owned type of approach to this piece of equipment. The dealers that you work with, how much inconsistency do you see, and how much from one store to the next? And one, the same tractor might have $2,500 on it, and the guy 2 stores away might have $5,000 on it, and there's no rhyme or reason as to why that is. I mean, what's that consistency look like to you with the dealers you work with?
It's without a doubt all over the place, and everybody's searching for that golden ring as we go around the circle. Sure. And so one of the things that I did at the dealership I was at before as used equipment manager is I built a chart like this. And I got all this information out of HQ. It's all there for us to get. And I took some time and put it together on a single report. But this is an example of a certain model machine that the dealership I was at, we sold a lot of them. It was a certain model combine in a certain year. And we just looked at one model combine 1 year to get a template on that product within the group. And so this went from 2014 to 2020. The same model machine, same year, and then we normalize all the hours. Something like Mr. Walmack does, John does for his stuff. I took that information and said, okay, what does that mean to me locally? And one of the things I'd like to point out is that the guide is a reference, not the gospel. And so in this perfect example, this orange line is where the guide said it would sell for every quarter. The gray line across the top is a great indicator because that's where the guide started at. And I could see after 6 years, the guide had dropped 37% or whatever. Give me an idea how to use this as a predictive tool. The black dots are where we retailed the combine. And I took the initiative to look at every single retail. This is the right number. So that's the total number of combines we sold of that model year and model. And so when I have salesmen come up to me and say, well, I just sold one for 120% a guide, I must be able to put that in a 1-year-old. That's not the truth. 1-year-old, we struggled hitting the guide. We were a large volume dealer doing lots of flips. So the reality is the guide doesn't take into consideration my new value prices using fleet and all those kind of discounts, right? And it is just kind of a one-of. And that's not the light world we live in. And so the reality is that I could, with this type of information, I was able to push back and say, no, if it is a 3 the 7-year-old combine in this series, because it was a strong combine for us and strong product and so on, we can be 110, 115% a guide right there. And then what I did to answer your question, I apologize, it took a long time to get there, but I also plotted the average reconditioning on a per quarterly basis. And that helped us immensely. So it took the emotion out of putting a number on it. Where have we been on a 5-year-old machine, and what has been our average reconditioning? And then you give the team some leeway to say, okay, you can be 115% and you need to be this average recon. And we want the local manager to decide, okay, well, this guy's combine's a poor one. He hasn't done any fixing. I need to increase my recon, or it's just been through the shop and they paid everything. I'm prepared to lower my recon. But without this kind of information, a guy's flying blind. So I put it all together. And then what I would do is meet with the sales team, look at this chart and say, okay, guys, as a group, where do you think this line's going to go for the next quarter, next 6 months? And we would just extend this chart out and say, okay, I think we're going to be here, or it's still a strong product, or, we all know those products that we can feel it just, there's a new model coming and it's a complete change. And we all feel that the world's going to change on a dime, spin right around on that product. We can say, no, it's going to flat right off. This is where we think we're going to be, or our inventory is strong, or we've seen a big drop on where we were, because so many people want to hang their hats on the last sale, right?
Sure.
As the salesman, I want to sell all my combines for this. No question about it. It's going to happen. As an inventory guy, I'm going to say they're all going to sell for this.
Right. Exactly.
You know what I mean? And so
yep.
This was a tool that we get out of HQ and utilize using those other reports to give us a good handle. And what I did, actually, I had about 6 different product categories that I looked at. A certain type of combine, a different type of combine, sprayers, tractors, wheel tractors, and I think a loader tractor's in there, but that's a pretty broad category. And then the nice thing about this is this was just ongoing maintenance once it was built. It was just a matter of plotting the sale. And when the sales department challenges on where we're going to go with this, I think we can do better. Fine. Show me the sales. We'll plot it on the chart.
Yeah. Yep. That's the whole thing. Data really lies. It's typically pretty cut and dry. That's what that looks like.
And so that's some of the stuff we did. Yep.
Okay. So here we are looking at trade values, and we're in a still a pretty hectic market. I think is the best way to put that. A lot of volatility out there right now. We were on for the last 18 months, we've probably been on a pretty steep trajectory as far as prices as they go up, just because of availability and what you're seeing there. It's starting to feel like there's some, softening of the market. It's not the right word, but I think getting back to more of a normal range is probably the right term to put in there. So I think as you're looking at your overall kind of outlook here for 23, and especially this first quarter, what are you seeing out there, and how are you seeing pricing reflect maybe year over year, or just kind of some of the stuff that you're tracking out there?
Well, it's certainly a combination of things. There's no doubt about that. I would be the first one to promote the idea that if somebody's buying millions of dollars worth of equipment, and we don't understand that role sometimes, our parts department, the guys at the counter don't have the authority to order a box of filters without somebody talking about it. And we're buying $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 items kind of at a whim. So I think there's going to be a lot driven ourselves. We're all going to step back. I think there's a lot of concern, I guess is the word, or anticipation. Where are we going? Sure. And data will help us with that. Because there's going to be certain commodities and certain products, and that's what I think of most of our products is a commodity. There's going to be certain they're going to be long on. I'm concerned about combines myself. I see that out there. We're getting backed up a little bit. Yeah. I think we've got lots of room yet for tractors. I think that market was short, filling it with new ones. So I think there's still some pressure on number of units out there, on inventories on tractors. So I think we're fairly safe there as long as people don't get silly. But I think prices are going to be driven down as much by the dealers that are concerned about where it's going and what they're paying for them to really what the customer is going to agree to pay for them. I really do.
Sure. Yeah. And I would agree with what you're saying. I mean, combines are what do you call that? A necessary evil, I guess is the best way to put it. I mean, it's one of those things where sometimes I feel like if you have more than one, you've got too many. And sometimes if you have one, you've got too many. So It's the constant battle there with combines are the first thing to deteriorate in price and the last thing to come rebound in price when things turn around. Looking at tractors, totally agree with what you're saying. I think tractor market has still got some ability to maintain some similar prices, but to your point, you got to be very cautious about where you're booking those things at and what does that look like. One thing that I'm paying attention to, just because of the time of year we're going in, I love your feedback on this, is the planter market and what you see happening there, and how are you using HQ, Iron HQ, and your trade guides to look at planters?
Well, we have that other category where if anybody posts and because corn planters, back up a little bit, corn planters aren't a product that is listed in trade guides, just because there is so many variables and so on, but we do have recorded sales in there of planters. And planters is a category that is like combines, and I think sprayers somewhat, that lots of customers are sitting on some really good planters that don't need to do anything with them. It's they got great technology, combines, guys are rolling combines every year, every 2 years, same with sprayers. And so I think planters could be one that takes a bit of pressure on the price, on the idea that there is some other costs coming up. Is there some worry about commodity prices? Interest is creeping up a little bit. Just like combines, I do believe there's going to be some pressure on planters because everybody's got lots of good planters. Like they got the farmer themselves have lots of capacity. Are they going to sit back? So we can look at that as far as sales history, because of course this appraisal process, it doesn't have to be in Iron Guides. If there's no number here, it means like this was a 3-point fork, so there was nothing in guides, but we were still able to see what the salesman wanted to put in it. And then we could also use our history on the same thing on planters. But that's a market that is really takes some hands-on and would be very, very tough to check the boxes and say it's worth X. All these add-ons, these third parties, and what those kits are worth, and what the customer's prepared to give them up for. Because in lots of people's minds, the reality is that I'm not sure if those third-party kits are worth anything on resale, because maybe the next guy doesn't like them. But it's all we can offer is history. We could take some of our charts and use that history, take some of those charts and show our own Iron Guides, ultimately our own process and our own sales process. But the planter's going to be tough. I think planter's going to be very tough.
Yeah, I think that's a tough, what you brought up there towards the end was kind of going to be my next question here as we wrap things up. But it is what happens with the planter market and the demand for used planters when more and more folks are taking a look at whether it's the deer option or the precision plant option of upgrading that old planter into a quote unquote new planter, and what does that look like? And to your point, what are those kits worth, and how do we determine what that looks like? And more machinery, I think, is going to have that approach to it of technology that you can retrofit back into an older model, a power unit of some sort, and what does that look like? But right now, planters is the only real common machine out there where you can take an old planter and make it new again, and just keep, as long as your bar's good, you can keep upgrading that stuff as it goes along. It'll be interesting to see what happens in that marketplace over the next, this season going into 24, 25. With more and more of these upgrade kits being sold. It'll be real interesting to watch that market.
If I could just touch base on that, the right dealers that embrace that will do very well in that, because we have an example of that in the construction side. Caterpillar can rebuild almost any product they've ever sold.
Sure.
And I know companies, dealerships, over my 45 years in the equipment business, I did spend a couple of years with a couple of Cat dealers. And it was amazing for them to buy an old scraper, an old crawler, and just completely rebuild it to certain specifications. And Caterpillar would even offer warranty on it. And so they embraced that. They just said, okay, what a great idea. I sell labor, I sell parts, I maybe solve a problem, because they didn't really want the trade as it was, and offer that back up to the customer. So I think there's an opportunity to pre-sell that idea to a gentleman's old planter, or take older planters that are on the ground and make them new. To meet the standards that the customer wants, almost built to spec, I think is a great opportunity for some dealers out there. It'd be a great winter work project. You can start to you can start working on them in June kind of thing, as soon as the guys were done with them. But we do have to understand that some of these kits, not the rebuild kits, but these new ideas like sprayers that we've seen and different things like that, maybe didn't pan out, that we have to understand they'll have no value to the next guy. So we all have to be careful on that.
Yep. Yeah, that's as more of these kits come out, like you're talking about the Caterpillar side, as more of these kits come out and more of these things take place, watching how that marketplace unfolds and then what's it do to the power unit, and start having the conversation of, is my XYZ piece of equipment worth strictly based around what it can be upgraded to? And is that going to affect the marketplace? So it's I guess a brave new world, I guess is the way to put it. And there's a lot of stuff coming at us here. So it'll be interesting to watch how things play.
Well, the guys that are willing to kind of get out of the old ways and look at that, and our dealerships quite often, are more often than not, are driven by the sales department. So that's maybe not that if it's acceptable an idea to the sales department to not sell the guy a new planter, but let's rebuild his old one. But if the right mindset is set upon it, I think it can be a good opportunity. I know, just to repeat myself on the cat dealers or industrial dealers overall, they seen that as a great profit center. It was, and the customer was happy, and it did solve a lot of problems.
Yep, absolutely. Randy, appreciate you being on the podcast here. What's the best way for them to get a hold of you to get more information about Iron HQ?
Yeah, it's the easiest to just email me at Randall Reilly, Randy Tye at randallreilly.com.
Right on. Okay. Randy, I appreciate you being on the podcast, man. Look forward to the next time.
Right on. Let's do it again. Thank you.
All right. I'm Casey Seymour with Moving Iron Podcast. Check me out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Moving Iron LLC. LinkedIn at Moving Iron Podcast, and check out the YouTube version of this over on our YouTube channel, Moving Iron Podcast. Go to MovingIronLLC.com for everything Moving Iron related, and you get more information about the Moving Iron Summit coming up here in Nashville, Tennessee, September 11th through the 13th, Nashville, Tennessee. It's not too far away from where their headquarters, where Iron Solutions headquarters is, out there in Franklin, right? Not where you guys are at?
You betcha. That's right, okay. Franklin. I'd be glad to come over to that.
Yeah, hop, skip, and a jump down the road there. So check that out. So with that, I'm Casey Seymour with Randy Tye. It's going to be smart, folks. Out.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Moving iron in the 21st century. Hard work.